Dear friends, welcome again. What is happening today, what we are experiencing, is not something that appeared suddenly. It simply or rather appeared, it is a truth, but for it to appear, for it to produce this bitter, poisonous and dangerous fruit, someone somewhere somehow cultivated it for a long time. I would like to address you in a way that also involves a personal dimension, and the reason is as follows. When Jonathan asked me to address this topic, where did this thing come from? How did it get mainstream? Trotsky was Stalin's opponent. That's why Ramon Mercader hit him with a sour pickaxe on the head in Mexico City, as Jonathan told us. I'll try to put some pieces together. What Jonathan told us, I will try to put into one sentence. The thinkers of the woke culture in the United States became a weapon of the United States Secret Services, being basically Trotskyists so that the United States could strike at the Soviet Union, which is the Stalinists. So we get this shape. We understand why the deep American state of the United States watered the tree of evil so that it could strike with its fruits the then formidable opponent that was the Marxist-Leninist Stalinist Soviet Union. Therefore, Americans enter the cultivation, the aggressive cultivation of the woke culture in order to supposedly strike the opponent. Ultimately, they transform themselves. This is an interpretation of the scheme that Jonathan spoke to us about in such analytical and meticulous detail.
Ερμηνεία του σχήματος, για το οποίο με τόση αναλυτική και επιμελή λεπτομέρεια μας μίλησε ο Τζόναθαν.
But the point is to also look at the content. Not just the politics, but a comprehensive understanding of the implications of what is happening. Names. Now please brace yourselves because the issue is personal. And I told you before, allow me to put a personal stamp on today, because when Jonathan called me and said, I want you to talk about this, I said, brother, hey, it's half my life.
Πέρασα στο Πάντιο Πανεπιστήμιο στο τμήμα επικοινωνίας και μέσων μαζικής ενημέρωσης, που είναι η σφικοφολιά.
Because it's half my life, because due to very poor career orientation, I went to university in the Department of Communication and Mass Media, which is the heart of wokeism in Greece. Panteo University is a hive in itself, and the heart of the hive is the sociology department, but more importantly, I would say the communication and media department. For 4 years, because I took it in my time as a diligent student, I was forced to learn or pretend to learn what I am about to tell you. Unfortunately, and I have upset my professors, the heart of this theory is so flimsy and, let me say, so ridiculous that a man with little brains. Mr. Professor, with all respect, you are teaching very serious science. So I compare it to real sciences, like lawyers for example. He can just go and talk nonsense and leave with A's. I did it and got the scholarship from the State Scholarship Foundation so that I could then go to Great Britain at King's, the University College of London, which does the exact opposite. Instead of telling you there is no signifier, there is no signified, there is no transmitter, there is no receiver, there is no society, there is no possibility of communication, there is no institution, nothing. That everything is subversion, deconstructed. He tells you, hey, if it looks like a duck, if it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, damn it, it's a duck. This may sound very basic, but as a core of basic logic, it is now revolution. This is what in Kings did, and I went there to clear my mind as much as possible of the names and theories that the time has come to present to you today. I hope I don't become tiresome. If I am, please tell me.
Ελπίζω να μην γίνω κουραστικός. Αν γίνω να μου το πείτε.
Horkheimer, Adorno, Marcuse, Habermas, Hannah Arendt, Benjamin, Eric Fromm, Michel Foucault, Derrida, Jean-François Lyotard, Robin D. Angelo, all of these constitute a diagram or rather constitute a vector to be clearer. They start somewhere. They go somewhere, and I'm saying this completely geographically. They return to where they started with a dissolving trail throughout their course. The thing starts with the so-called Frankfurt School. Please allow me to be descriptive and objective. There is no ethical approach to capturing the truth. The Frankfurt School had two main characteristics.
Η σχολή της Φραγκφούρτης είχε δύο κύρια χαρακτηριστικά.
They were thinkers of Marxist, Trotskyist perception and of Jewish origin. We start in the 20s to 30s. The Frankfurt School, which is the starting point of this entire distractive trail, passes through the United States, and from the United States it returns mainly through France, but also through universities in Great Britain, such as the School of Oriental and African Studies of the University of London or Birmingham.
Αλλά επίσης και πανεπιστημίων της Μεγάλης Βρετανίας, όπως για παράδειγμα είναι το SOA, School of Oriental and African Studies του Πανεπιστημίου του Λονδίνου ή το Birmingham.
He returns to Europe and essentially plows the ground of nihilism, demolition and dissolution, having done its job as Jonathan described it to us.
Ο Τζόναθαν περιέγραψε, με συγχωρείτε, την αύξηση πριν από λίγο.
The Frankfurt School nurtures a deeply hostile world, who, while hostile towards the Western heritage as a whole, nurtures a world that wants to completely dismantle the Western heritage.
Τρέφει έναν κόσμο ο οποίος θέλει να διαλύσει συνολικά τη δυτική κληρονομιά. Γιατί?
Why?
Για δύο λόγους.
For two reasons. We said they are Marxists and of Jewish origin, and they are Marxists and of Jewish origin in a Germany after Weimar Republic, where we have the rise of National Socialism. Most therefore take refuge in the United States, persecuted by the Nazi beast, which also shows, and this is their argument, how thorny the Catalan culture of the European and Western perception can become, with what? With the Holocaust. So they have been persecuted as communists. The fact that they are Trotskyists matters. It is called the Frankfurt School because it was founded in 1923 at the University Frankfurt am Main, and the so-called critical theory was developed there.
Στο Πανεπιστήμιο Universität Frankfurt am Main, και εκεί αναπτύχθηκε η λεγόμενη κριτική θεωρία.
So the thinkers of this so-called critical theory, a Marxist and then neo-Marxist reading of the world, leave Europe and move to the United States.
Στις Ηνωμένες Πολιτείες και μεταβαίνουν με μια βαθιά εσωτερική έχθρα προς τον δυτικό πολιτισμό.
Alpha and D, they move with a deep inner hatred towards the Western civilization that persecuted them ideologically and which also persecuted them nationally. Who are these people here? If I'm boring you, please tell me. Mark Horkheimer, is the director of the Social Research Institute University Frankfurt am Main, who also shapes the concept of critical theory. What does it say is that the science and logic of the Enlightenment supposedly assume that all modernity in the West is based on the Enlightenment in one way or another. Even we conservatives are in a way heirs to currents of the Enlightenment, specifically Edmund Burke. The conservatives, who at the time when everyone was shouting about the butchers of the French Revolution, Edmund Burke wrote, did not have time to see it happen, but he prophesied it. You French people will slaughter each other. Demolishing centuries of institutions is not a good idea. And then a general emerged and blood flowed in Europe. Napoleon, the conservative side, from there, we hold on to this thread of enlightenment, so to speak. So what Horkheimer is saying is that enlightenment is being instrumentalized to oppress humanity. So we need to end with enlightenment. And along with enlightenment, what should we end up with primarily? With logic. We here in Greece are a blessed people and a blessed nation because we created logic and we have never lost faith in God. However, for Westerners, logic also has an absolutely secular character. Adorno collaborates with Horkheimer's dialectic of Erklärung, that is, a dialectic that speaks of the cultural industry. What does Adorno tell you is that the mass media of that time, cinema, music, theater, and so on homogenize culture. What he says is not wrong, but it gives tools to the entire movement. Well, what it does is suppress individual criticism. So we should be suspicious of even the lightest arts. I speed up a bit. Marcuse is the favorite of the radical left people of the United States, because he is the first to speak about the liberation of oppressed minority groups. It's awesome. If you approach someone and tell them, you know, everyone is after you, suddenly they see you in a positive light. Marcuse didn't just talk about oppressed social groups. He already defined them already in how capitalism creates a one-dimensional person. I was writing all this stuff to pass my classes. Well, including the capitals of minority students. The students of the 60s have Marcuse as their idol. Jürgen Habermas, a highly respected thinker. We should admit this. Strukturelle Wandel der Öffentlichkeit talks about the openness of the public sphere and is the only one who says that guys, but look, rational dialogue can also lead to democratic liberation, but I'll tell you simply, as we used to say among ourselves at the university, too much analysis brings dissolution. That is, the rationalization of rationality with a rational approach for a more rational rationality. At some point you dissolve the whole thing. More optimistic than the rest, Hannah Arendt. Also admirable as a thoughtful thinker. She is not among the official thinkers of the Frankfurt School, and she has 2 great books.
Της σχολής της Φραγκφούρτης και δεν είναι γιατί, διότι η Hannah Arendt μιλάει.
One is the beginnings of totalitarianism, and liberals don't like it so much because Hannah Arendt doesn't only criticizes the right, but she also criticizes Stalin's Soviet Union.
μεγάλη διαφωνία για
She
το τι γίνεται
also
τον κύριο Καβατά.
criticizes Stalin's Soviet Union
Δεν ασκεί
and
μόνο κριτική στους
communist
Ναζί.
regimes at all.
Ασκεί κριτική και στη Σοβιετική Ένωση του Στάλιν. Γι' αυτό και
And
δεν
she also has something that should concern us even today. Its observation is gold. She's talking about la banalité du mal, that is, the banality of evil.
Μιλάει για la banalité du mal, δηλαδή η κοινοτοπία του κακού.
Many of their arguments today are used by the critics of woke culture themselves and boomerang back at them. We need these arguments. The banality of evil is that if something is satanic, bad, hateful, awful, if it's shown to you all the time, you get used to it. Manos Hatzidakis said so in the comments of Trito Programma. If you get used to the monster's face, it means you start to look like it. And we could also mention Eric Fromm as being connected to the Frankfurt School, which most of you have heard about. What he does is he comes and connects Marxism with psychoanalysis. Psychoanalysis also has deep roots in woke culture because it sexualizes everything. His approach is deeply materialistic. Especially if we filter it through the filters and resistance of Orthodox nations, like we Greeks.
Από τα φίλτρα και τις αντιστάσεις ορθοδόξων εθνών όπως είμαστε οι Έλληνες.
With the rise of Nazism, Horkheimer, Adorno, Marcuse, and Arendt are transferred to the United States. Columbia University in New York. Arendt works in New School for Social Research. Marcuse to University of California, San Diego, and has a direct influence on Berkeley.
Και έχει ευθεία επιρροή και στο Berkeley.
And they also tour universities like Harvard or Massachusetts Institute of Technology and all of that along with the civil rights for the black communities of the United States. Along with the anti-war movements against the involvement of the United States in Vietnam along with the feminism which is in the deep heart of woke culture.
Ενάντια στην εμπλοκή των Ηνωμένων Πολιτειών στο Βιετνάμ, μαζί με τον φεμινισμό, ο οποίος εκείνη την εποχή είναι στο βαθύ, πώς το λένε, στη βαθιά καρδιά της woke κουλτούρας.
All of that creates this great upheaval of the extirpation of the nihilism of dissolving everything and removing what have been coherent principles and guidelines for the common good for centuries or even millennia. Feminism. Not anymore. Because modern feminism, at least its rebels, is beginning to understand that the greatest enemy of women's rights, of real rights and I would dare say of real women, is the aggressive and irrational LGBTQ agenda. It is a very anti-woman ideology. And all of this comes back to us. They begin and approach 18-year-old Constantinos, who has just entered the Pantheon University and does not know what awaits him. Because that's where France plays its role. The France of postmodernism, of deconstruction. France, which if we could make it an image, is the opening ceremony of the Paris Olympic Games, and France, which, together with 2 or 3 colleges and universities in the United Kingdom, which I must say, held out a little resistance, as it is the so-called Anglo-Saxon analytical positive approach to science that still has logic at its core. Despite this, the French came and made a mess of things. As Safari says, it's food for cattle. Michel Foucault, they are watching you and want to punish you. History of sexuality is all about sex, all sexuality, everything is your body, all hedonism because it talks about social institutions. In social institutions, there are also things that we don't think about. The medical system, it's not just the school system, the prisons, and how all of this examines the control of bodies, of groups and of populations. College de France by Michel Foucault. Lyotard, The Postmodern Situation, a reference work for Greek followers of dissolution and nonsense. There is no signifier. There is no sign. The transceiver dissolves into a subjective vision of the impossibility. Stop bothering us. Because this whole thing burns our minds, and in the end the other person comes and says to you, oh, hello, there is no good, there is no evil, there is no right, there is no wrong, there are no nations, genders, sexes, there is no God. Do you have any problem? They have been preparing this whole thing for decades. Lyotard, the god of George Veltsos, may man be well, we had a good time. We wrote a lot of papers, we got A's. We didn't understand who was kidding whom. We did what we were teaching or he did what he was teaching us. I don't know. I repeat, may he be well. I don't have any dark feelings for my teachers. Everything is a journey. And this journey of ours brings us here today, and we must gain the awareness of why we are right. And you know, saying today I am right is a revolutionary act because they try to tell you that there is no right, there is no wrong. But he is the one who does this whole thing. What they do is very charming. It is really charming. He unloads this whole crap into our heads. Derrida brings the truck of doubt and unloads the garbage onto the field of language. But he is the one who says that look, if I say tree and you say tree, I mean something else and you mean something else, so the tree does not exist. And no, the tree simply does not exist. We do not have the ability to communicate and agree on the meaning of the tree. These are, as I told you before, the signified and the signified, Derrida. We also made him an honorary doctorate at the Department of Communication and Mass Media of the University of Pantheon. Jean Baudrillard, also a very charming philosopher, saying that reality in the post-capitalist world is replaced by signs and symbols. He is right, but it has not only to do with the capitalist world here, and reality is not replaced. Reality is signs and symbols. Hence, everything is part of the great cognitive field of semiology. You don't need the French post-structuralists to tell you this. A serious analytical logician philosopher, Wittgenstein, has also told you that in the end, deep down, he says there is no difference between ethics and aesthetics. Everything is a field of observation. But if you pull this out and say that it is only a field of observation, well, you are also putting your little stone in the foundation of the building that wants to abolish essence. I told you before about Eric from psychoanalysis. From also comes what Lacan is getting at. Well, again a lot of sex and only sex and everything in sex. And Marcuse influences Foucault. Benjamin inspires Baudrillard. Arendt contributes with the analysis of the power relationship with its objects. I told you from and Lacan connect all this with psychoanalysis.
Οπότε οι
So the
ιδέες οι
ideas that were
οποίες
spread in
διαδόθηκαν
the
στις Ηνωμένες
United
Πολιτείες
States
μέσω του
through
Columbia, του New
Columbia,
School for
the
Social
New School
Research
for Social Research and
που
so
έρχονται και
on and
σκάνε
so
στον
forth
Μάη
that
του
came and exploded in May
1968. Και εκεί
1968 and all the peripheral European countries were
ειδονίζονται
Hellenized,
όλες οι
including, let
περιφερειακές
me say, complex Greece,
ευρωπαϊκές
which
χώρες,
must
μεταξύ
always
των
look
οποίων
outside to
και
find
η,
superior
επιτρέψτε να το πω,
ideas to
κομπλεξική
introduce
Ελλάδα, η
and
οποία πρέπει
propose to
πάντα
the
να κοιτάει
Greeks.
κάπου έξω για να βρίσκει ανώτερες ιδέες, να τις εισαγάγει και να τις προτείνει στους Έλληνες. Και τα υπόλοιπα, όπως λέει και στον Άμλετ, νομίζω, the rest is silence. Όλα τα
As
υπόλοιπα είναι
Hamlet
σιωπή. Δεν
says,
χρειάζεται να
all
πούμε
the
τίποτα, διότι τα
rest is
ξέρουμε. Τα υπόλοιπα τα
silence.
ζήσαμε.
We
Γεια
don't need to
σας.
say anything else
1979,
because we
για 3
lived
μέρες
the
δεν πειράζει,
rest.
αλλά εδώ πέρα
Here
νομίζω
I
ότι
think
όλοι
we've all lived through
έχουμε
the
ζήσει μέσες
mid-60s,
άκρες,
the
δεκαετίες του
70s,
60, του
the
70, του
80s.
80. Τα
The
υπόλοιπα είναι
rest is
σιωπή.
silence,
Και είναι
and it's the
σιωπή
silence of
της
our
εμπειρίας μας,
experience,
της
our
κοινής
common
μας
perception of
αντίληψης
things.
για τα πράγματα. Έρχονται
They come
και
and are
ουσιαστικά
essentially
ενσωματώνονται,
integrated, consumed,
καταναλώνονται,
metabolized, and become the dominant
μεταβολίζονται
narrative.
και γίνονται
I think the most infuriating thing in this whole affair is that these guys who come and pass us off as revolutionaries are a regime.
ως επαναστάτες είναι καθεστώς.
It is the
Είναι το
absolute
απόλυτο
dominant
κυρίαρχο
narrative, and
αφήγημα.
they have become
Και
a
έχουν
regime through
καταστεί
this process.
υπέροχη ελληνική
They have
γλώσσα,
destroyed the
ακριβώς μέσα από αυτήν τη
schools.
διαδικασία.
They have
Έχουν
destroyed the
αλώσει τις
academic
σχολές,
institutions.
έχουν αλώσει
They have
τους
taken over the
ακαδημαϊκούς
media.
θεσμούς,
They
έχουν
have influenced
καταλάβει τα
politics.
μέσα μαζικής ενημέρωσης, έχουν επηρεάσει την πολιτική. Ποιος
Who
ήταν ο
was
αγαπημένος
Kostas Semitis'
διανοητής
favorite thinker?
του Κώστα Σιμίτη?
Georgios
Ο
Veltsos.
Γιώργος Βέλτσος.
They ate
Μαζί
together in the
έτρωγαν
evenings.
τα βράδια.
Who is
Ποιος είναι ο αγαπημένος
Kyriakos
πολιτικός
Mitsotakis'
του
favorite
Κυριάκου
politician?
Μητσοτάκη? Ο Κώστας
Kostas
Σιμίτης.
Semitis.
Πάει το
The
πράγμα
thing is going
γραμμή.
in a line.
Οφείλουμε να το
We have to trace it.
ιχνηλατήσουμε.
Some small, very brief
πολύ σύντομες
references and I'll
αναφορές
close.
και κλείνω.
For those of you
Για
who
όσους
are
εξημών
curious for a serious
έχετε
confrontation with those who are
για
trying to destroy the
σοβαρή
principles,
αντιπαράθεση
the
με
values
αυτούς
of
που
any
προσπαθούν
functional world,
να ισοπεδώσουν
with
τις
the
αρχές,
achievements that we
τις
have had
αξίες
for
όχι
thousands
μας,
of years,
οποιοδήποτε
we cannot suddenly
λειτουργικού
abolish everything
κόσμου,
from one day to the next.
με τα επιτεύγματα που επί χιλιάδες χρόνια έχουμε, δεν μπορούμε ξαφνικά από τη μία μέρα στην άλλη όλα να τα
We
καταργήσουμε.
do not have the
Δεν
right
έχουμε
to
το
do it.
δικαίωμα να το κάνουμε.
Kostas
Κριτές θα μας
Palamas,
δικάσουν
judges,
οι
the
αγέννητοι
unborn,
νεκροί.
will judge
Κωστής
us.
Παλαμάς. Δεν
We do
έχουμε
not have
δικαίωμα
the
να το
right
κάνουμε
to
απέναντι
do
στα
this
παιδιά
to our
μας αυτό. Εδώ
children.
δεν είμαστε για μας.
We are not here for ourselves.
Εδώ
I am
είστε
here for my
για την
2.5-year-old
2,5
daughter
ετών Αλεξία
Alexia,
και
and
εδώ
I am
είμαι για
here
τα
for your
παιδιά
children.
σας.
And
Και σε
thank you,
ευχαριστούμε,
Jonathan, before I
πριν κλείσω
close for
για όλο
all
αυτό.
this. Look for Kimberly
Ψάξτε την
Crenshaw,
Kimberly
Robin D.
Crenshaw,
Angelo,
τον Robin
Ibrahim
DiAngelo,
Kendi, Angela Davis,
τον
among
Ibrahim
others.
Kendi, την Angela Davis, μεταξύ άλλων. Ή και αυτούς να μην ψάξετε.
Please always have in
Έχετε
your
που
mind
μείνετε.
and in your
Σας
heart,
παρακαλώ.
in your conscience, in a way
Στο
that
νου και
no
στην καρδιά
wokeist
σας,
can shake you that all that
συνείδησή
has
σας,
happened is something
στέρεο,
organized,
με
deeply
τρόπο που δεν
institutional,
μπορεί
deeply
κανείς
regime-based and now is formulated and
αυλογολόγος,
imposed in terms of
έολος
totalitarianism.
και κοκορόμυαλος συνομιλητής να σας κλονίσει ότι όλο αυτό που έχει συμβεί είναι κάτι το συντεταγμένο, το βαθιά θεσμικό, το βαθιά καθεστωτικό και πλέον διατυπώνεται και επιβάλλεται με όρους ολοκληρωτισμού.
We are here today
Είμαστε
because
σήμερα
we understand,
εδώ,
I believe, or at
διότι
least we all feel,
αντιλαμβανόμαστε,
that we are the
πιστεύω,
revolutionaries of our
τουλάχιστον
time.
αισθανόμαστε
With this presentation, I
και
hope that I
όλοι
have helped everyone to
ότι
understand a little better
είμαστε οι
what the regime
επαναστάτες της
against which
εποχής
we are
μας.
rebelling is.
Με την
Thank you very
εισήγηση μου
much.
αυτή, εύχομαι ότι βοήθησα να καταλάβουμε όλοι λίγο καλύτερα πραγματικά ποιο είναι το καθεστώς απέναντι στο οποίο επαναστατούμε. Ευχαριστώ θερμά.